legislative change would be what, Chamoth? What is the low-hanging fruit? What's the layup here?
Well, I think we've seen this happening in other markets for a while, which is that banks have become, in fairness to them, much, much better at risk management post-Dodd-Frank, post-Great Financial Crisis. And the result of that is that there's been a lot of emerging private credit markets because most of the bank is about lending, right? They're not really buying equities. They're lending money. They're a debtor in possession of something, right? And there's been just a massive explosion of private credit. And it started in the most obvious areas. It started in things like CLOs. It started in asset-backed securities, solar, car loans, credit cards, mortgages, private equity-backed deals. So I think the rational answer is that banks need to protect 100% of deposits, and that if they want to have extracurricular activities, if you will, they need to be able to raise money from investors, put that to work in a really fair and transparent way, and then share in the profits between all of the related parties that are involved in that transaction, no different than any other risk-taking organization. And I think that this is now what we've probably shined a light on is a really odd loophole that just needs to get closed in 2023.
There's such easy hygienic changes here.
Like, let's put it a different way. Yeah. If you raised money for a liquid hedge fund that had quarterly redemptions and then violated the LPA and stuffed it into private companies that had 10-year illiquidity, there would be hell to pay.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If you raised money on 10-year illiquid locked up capital on the presumption you were going to invest in startups and then instead put it in the stock market thinking that you could flip it and make some money, you would have violated the LPA and there'd be hell to pay. Similarly, I think what Sachs is stating is that there is a mismatch of what the depositor, in this case, the investor, expects and what the risk manager is doing. And I think that you have to correct that one way or the other. Make it abundantly clear that we're never going to insure 100% and deal with that risk. Or make it 100% and deal with the fallout, which is largely about wiping out a lot of equity value in banks.
LPA equals limited partnership agreement.
Right. And just to clarify one thing, I'm not saying that these bank managers are all going to the casino and gambling the money. I think that they are generally more responsible than that. What I'm saying is that the incentives created by this crazy system we call banking create a weird incentive for them to gamble because they're so highly levered. From their standpoint, your deposits are their leverage.
Everybody but the GSIBs, because I think the GSIBs, there's so much scrutiny. If you look at how well run Citi, B of A, Wells, and JPM are relative and contrast them to the sub GSIBs, it's like night and day. And so the other thing that I think we've realized is who thought it was a good idea to raise the bar on eligibility from 50 billion of assets to 200? Clearly now that made no sense. It makes more sense to actually categorize every bank as systemically important, maybe not globally, but at a minimum to the U.S. economy, because these people play a vital function in society and they were allowed to take a much more aggressive risk posture because they were able to lobby the government to change the rules.
The CEO of TikTok, which claims to be an American company now or an international company, was in front of Congress today. His name is Shou Chew. This is the first time he's really, I think, spoken publicly in an extended period. 4.5 hours he was grilled. And it was absolutely brutal. It's the first time I've seen a congressional hearing that was bipartisan in a long time. And he said that, quote, the bottom line is, this is American data on American soil by an American company overseen by American personnel, and then was immediately squirrely when asked if Chinese employees, including engineers, have access to this U.S. data. And he said this is a complex subject. Over and over again, he was evasive. And this did not look good for TikTok. Well, the question now becomes, does it become divested and go public, or does it get shut down? Sachs?
I think his goose was cooked as soon as they asked him the question. In preparation for this hearing, did you consult with any member of the CCP? and he could not just outright say no.
Nope.
So his goose was cooked as soon as he couldn't just say no.
What do you think about the bipartisan nature of this, and what do you think the outcome is, Sachs?
Well, this is one of the rare things where it is bipartisan. I mean, there is so much outrage and anger at this. I think that they should let the company divest it. I think it is divestiture or shutdown for TikTok. Since we're not communists here, I think they should be given the chance to fully divest to an American-owned company. But look, I just wish that there was as much bipartisan consensus and outrage directed not just at Chinese spying of Americans, but on the American deep state spying on Americans, because we just had hearings showing that the American government conducts elaborate spying operations, surveillance of Americans on social media. This was all revealed in the Twitter files. And we got certainly no bipartisan consensus on that. Republicans were outraged, but Democrats tried to portray it as some sort of spat between Trump and Chrissy Teigen. I mean, that's all they wanted to talk about. So I would like to see this problem comprehensively addressed. And that means, I think, TikTok going into the hands of an American company, but I also would like more assurances that American companies will not be working with the deep state to spy on us and infringe on our civil
Chrissy
liberties.
Teigen and Donald Trump, who are two people you'd never invite to a dinner party. Freeberg, what are your thoughts? Is it going to divest? Should it be forced to divest? Being intellectually honest about it. What are your thoughts on TikTok in America?
Yeah, I think I've shared this in the past. I think they're probably going to have to spin this thing out. And if they hold any equity, if the Chinese parent company holds any equity interest, it'll probably be non-voting shares. And there'll be a mandate that the majority of the shares and some degree of oversight.
You believe that's the right thing to do? From a national security issue for America to force them to do that?
I don't know from a national security point of view. I really don't. I don't have an opinion on national security and TikTok. I don't know. I've always thought that TikTok was a really, what's the right word? Like it's like a firefly for, Chinese invasion. And it feels like, it's a very easy kind of target for, I think, what is generally a big kind of social consciousness right now. So, whether or not there's actually some national security points, if there were, I'm pretty sure that a national security person would have stood up and said, we need to stop this thing. I'm not sure I've heard that publicly.
Chamoth,
but I will say, my point of view from just seeing the political behavior is that they're probably going to mandate that these guys spin this thing out to U.S. investors and that they have, don't own any, that the Chinese don't have any equity or management oversight or interest in it.
Chamoth, in China itself, the Chinese government does not